Alright, welcome ladies and gentlemen to another episode of Smite Season 2 metas. I was about to say super builds, it's not. I see the scenery and I think super builds, which I kind of think they should update it, because that JPEG as the background is getting kind of old. Anyway, this is not a Poseidon build, or I guess technically it is, but that's not really the purpose of the video. The purpose of the video is pretty much just like the third segment of like Season 2 metas. If you haven't seen the other two, I got the ADC Hunter and also the support / Guardian, if you want to check those out. So, the mid lane, I was going to do the solo lane, but solo lane, I don't know how to really do it yet, because you can be either a physical or a magical or a guardian. You can be anything in the solo lane nowadays. So I'll figure something out for that later. But for the meantime, going over the pretty much basics of the middle lane, which is most likely you're going to play a mage. I mean, sometimes maybe in casuals, even in competitive, you see some weird things, like an ADC in the middle. But typically, you're a mage. So if you don't know already, starter items is very important conquest for each role. In this case, being a mage in the middle lane, Vampiric Shroud is definitely the way to go. There's no really sense in anything else. But Vampiric Shroud for the Great Pass to keep you a little bit more sustained. And the second item kind of varies. Typically nowadays it's more of a lost artifact pickup, and kind of branch that off into like a Chronos Pendant, or if you know you're gonna win your lane, you're doing really good, and you're not gonna die a lot. Doom Orb is a strong item. Don't get me wrong, it's a really strong item, but a lot of people have doubts about it and don't really like it for multiple reasons. But one thing to keep in mind if you do pick this up, if you do die, your stacks are cut in half, and that can hurt you a lot, especially if you start dying a lot and you still have this item on you, then it really hurts you. The other item to pick up is the tier 1, the tiny trinket, the lifesteal. This gives you magical lifesteal, obviously, instead of the MP5 you get from Lost Artifact. So this item you get more HP, the other one you get more mana. It kind of varies. But like I said, mostly it's going to be the Lost Artifact. But if you do pick up Tiny Trinket, you can build up into multiple ways. Actually, just two ways, personally. The first way is Bearcroft's Talon. It's a really strong item. It's probably the most common lifesteal item picked up. Or you can build it up into Divine Ruin. Divine Ruin, it's a really strong item, but don't really pick it up unless if you're fighting against, obviously, like healers, like if you have enemy Hell or Aphrodite in the solo lane or in the duo lane, or Hercules, or just, like I said, where you can make this passive useful. But besides that, like Pythagoras Piece, it's a strong item, but it's really expensive. Polynomicon's not the greatest right now. It's only good if you have a lot of magical power, like, let's say, Kukulkan. But never mind that. Let's go back and pick up the Lost Artifact. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, if you go into Recommended, which I think this pops up by default once you open up the item shop screen, this starter way right here, it's actually really good. All these items are fairly decent for what they say they are, compared to what they used to be back in like Season 1 and beta days. But yeah, pretty much you pick up a Vampiric Shroud, Lost Artifact, and 1 pot of each, or 2 of each, depending on your style of play. So before you would finish the Lost Artifact or the Tiny Trinket, you go ahead and pick up boots of your kind, finish those, and then go back and then finish this off and do whatever you want. Just don't pick up Rod's Hoodie. Rod's Hoodie early is not that great, and it's really expensive. Kind of slows you down. But the boots situation, obviously, either shoots a Magi or shoots a Focus. Ignore these other two. The shoots a Focus, it's a lot less power, but obviously cooldown reduction. You reach the cooldown reduction if you get, or the cooldown reduction cap if you get the Chronos Pendants, and also the shoots of Focus. This makes you a little bit more utility based, not so much damage based. What that kind of means is you're able to use your abilities as like a CC effect, or just knockups, or whatever the case may be according to your god. Personally, I'll pick up Shoes of Magi just to get a really nice damage spike. After the boots, and you go back and finish up your second item slot. The second item slot, Warlock Sash is probably the most favored stacking item right now. Reason being for Warlock Sash is because you're always getting rotated on, you're almost always targeted by the enemy jungler, or you're in team fights and things like that. The Warlock Sash can beef you up HP and mana point wise, so that we can live a little bit longer and counter your opponents. Also, the other stacking item is Book of Thoth. I'm going to type it here. Book of Thoth. A little bit expensive, but you know, the stacking items are expensive, but they're kind of worth it. That also brings up your mana pool and power quite nicely. If you're not a fan of stacking items, or you don't want to pick up a stacking item, you can use this item slot as like a lifesteal item. Slots like Bancroft's Talon, or let's say your Poseidon Gem of Isolation for your 3. Things like that. Next, the penetration, because at this point you have no penetration, you want to start building some. Obsidian Shard is my personal favorite. The Spear of Magus, it's really good, really strong item, but it's only really useful if you have other magical damage dealing gods on your team to benefit from the Spear of Magus passive, pretty much, you know, shredding the magic protections of your enemies that way, so your magical allies can benefit from that as well on that target. But typically you're going to be the only magical damage dealing god in Conquest. That's kind of like the thing, is one mage and everybody's physical, and of course you have your support slash guardian, which if it's a guardian, it'll be, you know, magical damage dealer. If it's a warrior playing in the support role, then it's all physical and just one mage. But like I said, it varies. A lot of situational items in this game. And of course, according to this build, we have no lifesteal. Bancroft's Talon is a pretty nice pickup. And of course, you go back and sell your start item and pick up the Rise of Hoodie as your kind of like last item. Of course, it would do that. Whatever. Actives. Greater Purification Beads is really popular for any role, honestly, just because it just shreds the CC. It can prevent CC as well. And being in the mid lane, you're going to be involved in a lot of fights, so that's really great. The second active slot, it really varies on who you are and your situation, so freedom of choice there. So that pretty much wraps it up for the video. I hope this is sort of useful for the new players to Conquest or to Smite in general. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.